difference. Talking about one of the major dreams of the Ukrainian society, returning back to the European family to which we belong, I want to underline that this decision was taken by our people back in 2014, when we stood up against the regime of Yanukovych, when we took the challenge of Russian first wave of war that was waged against Ukraine by annexation of Crimea and occupation of part of the eastern territories of Ukraine. At that particular moment, people of Ukraine have finally clearly decided for themselves that freedom, democracy, human rights, rule of law, those are those things that we cherish, that we want to further develop in our country, and we want to do that along with the societies and countries that have proven to be successful in this. Thus, we wanted to join, and we still do want to join both NATO and the EU. But I want to focus on EU membership today. I totally understand that there is no such thing as fast-track procedure of any country to join the European Union. I totally understand that this procedure and the path for any country to join the Union is written down in very clearly in many details, and that foresees a huge amount of work, starting from a wide range of transformative reforms that have to be carried out in the country. Legislation, bulk of European legislation, which is difficult in quite a few areas, that has to be transmitted into national legislation. That is about quality standards, about security standards, about division of powers, about balance of powers, about independence of institutions, about rule of law, and many, many other things that have to be delivered for the society to be able to join. I also totally understand that from the point of view of Brussels bureaucracy, such forwarded kind of track of country joining to the EU may seem to be totally impossible, both from legal, from practical level, not to mention from the point of view of the political stance of many countries. For example, such countries as Germany, or like France, or like Belgium, or the Netherlands, or the others. I also very clearly understand that joining the EU by such big country as Ukraine is rather costly endeavor. And I do understand very well that all those Eastern European states that have been joining over the last couple of decades the Union have been granted a lot of additional financial support, starting from donations, from credits, and ending with a lot of investments in those countries. And that could be something that is of serious concern for those states that would have to take this decision about welcoming Ukraine into their ranks. I also very well understand that there is also a factor of the population of the country, and that Ukraine, being one of the biggest countries on the European continent, and definitely bigger than any other country joining over the last couple of decades, has this huge population that will impact the level of representation in the European Parliament. Also, I understand that it also will have impact on the on such indicator as this coefficient of the voices and votes while taking the decisions in the European countries, because there Ukraine would be probably like fourth or fifth state in Europe. I also understand that Ukraine joining the EU at some special procedure would also impact and maybe even to an extent to be harmful to some of the processes that have been started in the Western Balkans, for the countries that have been already on different stages of their negotiations with regard to joining the European Union. But there are two main factors that have to be taken into account from my perspective. If the European Union is really a union about values, as it claims to be, if the European Union really wants to remain the forepost of democracy as it presents itself to the world, then the European Union has to take this important decision of letting Ukraine into the European family. Moreover, the second thing is that if the European Union is real representative democracy, then it has to be guided in its decisions by the will of its societies. And what we see right now, that 70% of the societies across European Union are in favor of Ukraine joining the EU. That means that in Poland, the numbers are as high as 92% for Ukraine being let into the EU, 71% in Italy, 68% in Germany, already 62% in France. I think the leaders of these countries have to take into account what their citizens think with regard to Ukraine and our further fate as a country and as a democracy and as a participant of the Union. And if the politicians across the EU think that concerns are of such importance that they cannot take the decision on granting us the EU membership at this particular moment, I think in this unprecedented times, there always can be a creative solution found to provide Ukrainians with a glimpse of the future, with a breath of fresh air in these dire times for our nation. For example, something that could be considered as a first step on our European integration, that could be the suggestion that is coming from member of the European Parliament, Andrius Kubilius, where he's speaking about possible full economic integration of Ukraine without political vote at this particular moment. That's definitely not something that Ukrainian people would like to see, but that could be a good step forward in the promise of Europe to integrate the nation that every single day is by example and by real actions is proving that it is standing on European values and that it is defending European values as such. And kind of finalizing, I'd like to say that the issue of giving Ukraine candidate status is definitely something that is not written clearly in any of the bureaucratic documents of the EU. So what it takes real political will to deliver on that decision and open up the possibilities of additional transformation for Ukraine. So with the political support that was received by Ukraine from the European Parliament, calling on the nations of Europe to consider welcoming Ukraine in the EU, with the next step, definitely not ideal step of the summit in Versailles, informal European Council meeting in Versailles, that said that Ukraine is a European nation. Definitely, we are nothing else but a European nation, a real European nation. I think right now the European Commission can work very promptly on the brief document that is required to lay the way for the Council to take the final decision and grant Ukraine a candidate status. All it requires, again, it requires courage, openness, and clarity of the vision for the future. And I think that this is something that Ukrainian nation definitely deserves, and that should be delivered by the EU leaders. Ukrainians, by fighting the war, are hoping that our partners that have been with us over this difficult more than 8 years of the war, which was carried out by Russia on a smaller scale, will move forward. We already see the tectonic changes in your societies. We already see the tectonic changes in your policies towards Ukraine. So one additional step is definitely a possibility, because if Ukraine won't be let in this unprecedented difficult times, I think that would mean that there is an end to the EU as we know it. But I'm sure that the EU wants to come out from this challenge that it is going through together with Ukraine much stronger, much more powerful, and much more appealing to other nations in the world. I believe in wisdom, I believe in vision, and I want to call on leadership that is right now, unfortunately, a bit lacking among the European nations. Thank you.